Right? Can you hear me? Great. Good afternoon. So I'm sure that most of you know research by McKinsey, by Harvard, by Columbia, and myriad other universities, think tanks, consultancies show that organizations with diverse leadership are 35% more likely to have better financial returns. So advancing women's leadership is a business imperative. And I really hope that the men here will share with all their male colleagues that women in leadership is definitely not just a woman's issue. I hope the men will also find relevance in what we're going to explore about what we need in leadership, because what we need really applies to everyone. If you're willing to let go of long-held but untrue and unfair stereotypes about what each of the sexes are capable of doing. And there's also extensive research on that, on the unconscious biases that we all carry about men and women. So even if you think you're an extremely progressive human being, just be very vigilant and very self-aware of the moments when you may be applying those perceptions unfairly to a woman or to a man. So I've been an advocate of women's issues for a very long time. I think you might get a kick out of this photo of me in a 1970 Rolling Stone magazine 37 years ago. I think it's older than some of you are. I've been at this a long time. And a younger colleague once said to me, "I stand on your shoulders, Nadine." To which I replied, "No, actually, we're all part of a very long chain of progress that happened long before us and will continue far after us. And none of us does anything alone, ever." This is how I view leadership in general and women's leadership in specific. We are all part of that chain, so how can all of us, as women and men, stand on the shoulders of those who came before us in progressing this issue? We have some great foremothers and forefathers who really participated in the movement for women's advancement. When I was young, I actually believed it was a sprint. In the 1960s, I thought we were going to get everything done then. We were going to change the whole world. And I believed I just had to run as fast as I could, as flat out as I could, because it was a sprint. Then I grew a little bit older, and I realized, oh no, this is more like a marathon. I got to pace myself for the long distance haul, conserve my energy. And then I grew even older, and I realized it's really, it's a relay race. I've only been able to do, and all of us have only been able to do what we do now because of people who came before us and passed the baton to us, the early runners. And we can never forget them. While I may never see the fruition of all I've worked for, and I've somehow come to some peace with that, I still have a sacred obligation to keep moving progress forward. Just as there have been leaders, famous and unsung, who have advanced it against seemingly impossible odds. And I know sometimes it really does feel like impossible odds, but it's always impossible until we do it. This is especially true now when we're experiencing a backlash throughout the world, in many parts of the world, and in virtually every sector, in business, in technology, in academia, and yes, in sports. So as you're all involved in the world of football, I asked UEFA, since I've used this image of sprint, marathon, relay for a long time, I asked them, what are the different ways that you train for those different types of races? And in reviewing the information they sent me, I shifted my own long-held view of this being a linear sequence that happened at different stages of your life. And I came to realize that sprint is not only for when you're at the beginning of your career, and marathon is not just for when you're at mid-career, and relay is not exclusively for when you're at its end. That you actually can choose which of these forms to use at any stage in your leadership journey. And just as Ginka has shared with you, as you develop your toolbox and you expand your repertoire, you might decide to use different leadership styles in different various settings, as long as you're always authentic and true to yourself. And some of you may have experienced that during yesterday's simulation, that different styles were needed at different times, or maybe you discovered it during the debrief after the simulation. So let's think about each of these. Again, for sprint, flat out, maximum, short period of time. Marathon, develop your endurance and stamina. Relay, it's won in the exchange. So what does that mean for each of these stages? Consider when you really need to be in a sprint. Whoop, sorry, back. Sorry. Because we do, in fact, sometimes have to be in sprint mode. There are occasions under enormous pressure where we have to get things done. But if we always stay in that mode, you absolutely will burn out. It's just a fact. It's non-sustainable to stay in sprint mode. In fact, you carry this sense of being constantly overwhelmed, thoroughly exhausted, and it really can also lead to very serious health consequences. So in the same way as the muscles that you train for a sprint, stretched, pre-tensed, fast twitch muscles, they'll contract more forcefully and rapidly, and the only way to avoid depletion is to give your muscles a chance to breathe. And the very same thing is true for your leadership muscles. You have to give yourself a chance to breathe. You can't be going flat out always. You may feel like the overwhelming obstacles you face on a daily basis force you to be in that intense state of readiness always. But you must give yourself time to nourish, which is vital. And in fact, it's at those times when you least think you can that you actually should. And you need to carve out the time for it. So find what nourishes you and make sure you take advantage of it. There's a reason why they say, put on your own oxygen mask first. If you're not taking care of yourself, you really can't take care of anybody else. So similarly, in marathon mode, you may feel like you've been slogging away at the same issue forever, never resolving it, and that you have to stay at it forever, and you can feel just so overwhelmed, but unless you save enough energy for the end of the race, you can get beaten down somewhere along the hill. And I know this from experience, because I actually hit this empty fuel state in my mid-40s, actually my early 40s. And I learned the hard way that I had to take time to renew myself regularly, or I never would have made it to now in my late 60s with my passion, my energy, my enthusiasm. And I'm very happy to be standing here feeling very passionate, very enthusiastic. But it's because I've taken care of myself, and it was one of the hardest lessons. So seek out time to care for yourself. This is something we're all told is selfish, but women especially are taught to nurture everybody but ourselves. And there's nothing selfish about it. Believe me, when you take care of yourself, it's a gift to everybody. You're not only a happier person, you're a better leader. In fact, the two are inextricably interconnected. Happier person, better leader. Your personal life affects your professional life, and vice versa, and a constant cycle. And if you get to a place where you're always depleted, always exhausted, you can't have these kind of wonderful moments of freedom and refreshment. So now, with a relay, you not only have to be conscious of your own pacing, but you also have to know the pacing of the person who's going to pass it to you and the pacing of the person you're going to pass it to, because it's in the exchange. So it's no longer yourself. And we're all in that situation where no matter how strong we may be, or how competent we may be, or how much on deadline we are, there's all kinds of other people we rely on in order to meet our obligations, to hit our deadlines. So really try to learn as much about those people, whether they're passing to you, you're passing to them, they're below you, they're above you, they're alongside of you, because you rely on them. We all live in an ecosystem. None of us does what we do by ourselves. You know what they say about the weakest chain, the chain being only as strong as its weakest link. So really think about that connectedness to other people. And what I find most compelling about a relay, especially the Ragnar relay, which I just learned about when I got all the UEFA information, Ragnar is a 200-mile over several days versus the typical track and field 4 100-meter segments. But what I love about it is that everybody, from the most seasoned runners to the newcomers who have never participated before, get this wonderful sense of accomplishment. Everybody's a winner. And there's a wonderful celebratory spirit. Oops, something, celebratory spirit got lost. Perhaps that was my last one. Celebratory spirit. No.
I think you went back instead of forward.
I went back instead of forward? Okay. We'll go through that. Sorry, everybody. Technology is not my strength, obviously, which is why I need others, like Sarah. Okay.
That one's right.
Maybe, yes. No. That was the Ragnar, yes. Thank you. This is Ragnar, celebratory spirit, everybody, newcomers. And it's so great. I mean, think about it when you're on teams. And you can have everybody, from the newest person on the team to the most accomplished person, really share in a great feeling of accomplishment. It's so different than just doing something on your own. It really is. There's something very unique about that, and I'd say, seek it out. And the physiological training for this kind of race is very similar to any other kind of long-distance race. No, I get it. But far greater spans can be covered than any one person could do alone. And I believe that those of you who have been in the program this week have had a taste of how great it feels to be really encouraged and supported by others. And please don't forget that. Bring that with you. This is that. Please don't.
Press the upper button.
Okay. I'm going backwards instead of next. Do you see? I'm glad I'm making mistakes, because it's actually a part of life. It's a part of leadership. You make mistakes, and the key thing is, do you fall apart when you make a mistake, or do you just acknowledge it and move on? That's really the essence of leadership. Are you going to let your mistakes, or are you going to let the mistakes of others, or are you going to let the setbacks knock you out of the game, or are you going to say, you know what? Up and at 'em. So let's see if I can find where I am. Yeah, this is that wonderful feeling of supporting each other in a team. And regardless of which mode you decide to use at whatever stage in your leadership, none of what I've been talking about has anything to do with whining about how bad things are. It's just looking reality straight in the face and making conscious choices. And that's the key point. You always have the ability to choose how you are going to lead yourself and how you are going to lead others. That is always up to you, no one else. You claim it, you own it, no one gives it to you. It's your responsibility and you have a choice. Don't ever let somebody else's agenda put your back up against the wall. Make your choices of what's going to work for you, and that applies to everybody, men and women. So when you decide to sprint, remember, do it for short spurts of time or you are going to burn out. When you're in a marathon, preserve your energy or you're going to get exhausted before the end of the race. And when you're in a relay, which you kind of always really are, you have to endure, but you also have to celebrate the successes of you and your teams as you go along. So I delight at the prospect of what each of you